do the introduction to avoid echo here.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our SEOR-CEIE joint seminar this afternoon. Thank you very much for coming. Today is a great honor to have Professors Fellows and Professor Ren from ISOM department at George Mason University to give a talk on the role of the dealer demonstration in the adoption of electrical vehicles. As a brief introduction, Dr. Fellows received his PhD from Georgia Tech. This is our first time doing this type of hybrid stuff, so hopefully you can see us clearly via the camera here. Dr. Fellows received his PhD from Georgia Tech. He is an associate professor at ISOM department. His research interests are found at the intersection of sustainable and service operations with an emphasis on innovative business models. His primary focus has been on service-based business models, shaping what is known as the sharing and access economy. Dr. Ren is an assistant professor at SEOR department. He received his PhD from University College London. His research focuses on understanding how customer behaviors influence on organizations' operations and marketing strategies. Ren has a broad interest in different business settings, including service operations, revenue management, retail operations, and he is especially interested in sustainable operations and healthcare operations. Both of them are well published, like for the famous ORMS journals, including Management Science, MSOM, and POM. It's a great honor again. Thank you very much for a talk. And here's the stage.
Thank you for the generous introductions and for coordinating this talk. Hi, everyone in the virtual room and in the actual physical room. My name is Yannis Belos. Today, we're going to present you a joint work with my good colleague, Han Ren, and our also good colleague, Vishal Agarwal from Georgetown University. In terms of logistics, I'm going to go through more or less half of the presentation, and then Han will join it, will take over, and will walk you through the rest of the presentation. Another way to think about this is I'm going to overpromise, and Han, I leave it to Han to deliver on my promises. So let me take a quick survey in the room and in the virtual. How many of you own an electric car? None? Any activity on the chat box?
No.
Oh no. Okay, that will change after this talk.
Well, there's one.
Oh, there is one. Okay. Was it an easy or a difficult decision to buy the electric vehicle? Any feedback on that? No?
Difficult.
Huh?
Difficult.
Oh, difficult. Okay. I hear you. I think I know the reason. So we will walk you through that today. So I think you are going to agree with me that over the past several months, one piece of news, other than COVID-related stories, that has been featured prominently in the popular and business press had to do with announcements from manufacturers around their commitment to electrify. Recently, I think it was GM who pledged to go all electric by 2035. Right after that, Volvo followed with a similar announcement. Jaguar and many other OEMs, let's say Volkswagen, they have committed to this what they call electric offensive. Other manufacturers have made similar commitments to go all electric or to a large extent electrify their fleets. Now, we can have a rich conversation about what are the true motives behind these announcements, right? Is it that manufacturers started to care about the environment? Is it that manufacturers know that customers increasingly care about the environment? Is it regulation? Is it that they see the writing on the wall and they know that in a few years from now or several years from now, it will be cheaper to produce an electric vehicle than a conventional one? The answer may be all of the above, but motive aside, the reality seems to be that there is a strong commitment to go to electrify their fleets from the manufacturer side. Now, from the consumer side, we have noticed that consumers increasingly warm up to the idea of owning an electric vehicle. In a recent survey conducted by the Union of Concerned Scientists and Consumer Reports, they found out that at least 2/3 of the interviewed consumers, they express, they have an interest, a strong interest to buy an electric vehicle. Okay. So what does this mean? This means that in terms of supply and demand interest, the stars have started to align in the space of electrification. So there is strong interest from a consumer side. There seems to be strong commitment from the manufacturer side. Well, that's great, but the reality on the ground remains that new electric vehicle sales represent a tiny fraction of new vehicle sales. So far, despite all this, the hyper and the push for electrification and the strong consumer interest, it looks like that electric vehicles have not been able to meaningfully challenge the dominance of conventional gasoline-powered vehicles. So in 2018, EV sales represented 1.6% of all cars sold, and this jumped to 1.8% in March 2019. Okay. Now, some of you may be thinking that this may be due because there are no options out there. This is not the case. This hesitation, this anemic adoption of electric vehicles is despite the considerable number of options, both in terms of makes and models in the market. So as of January 21, there were 26 fully electric models offered by 13 different manufacturers out there. And if you look at this picture here, unless you are like the kind of the suburban Tahoe, huge massive SUV kind of a person, if you really want to buy an electric vehicle, you do have options. So it's not that customers do not have options. So now the question still remains: why? Why this anemic adoption? So let's take a closer look. We found another survey conducted by AAA, and here is what they did. They reached out to customers who had actually bought an electric vehicle, and they found out that 91% of these electric vehicle owners said that when they were considering buying an electric vehicle, they had at least one concern, serious concern. The majority of those concerns had to do with range sufficiency, whether the electric vehicle will allow them to meet their mobility needs. Okay, we know that when it comes to electric vehicle adoption of electric vehicles, the elephant in the room is range or range sufficiency. So since this is so important, we're going to go ahead and we are going to take a close look at this range issue. And in this paper, we start at the very beginning by distinguishing between what we call designed range and achievable range. So designed range is the range, the miles that the electric car can meet under ideal conditions. So you take it, you put it on the ramp, you put a brick on the pedal, and you let it, you see after how many miles the battery dies under ideal lab testing conditions. So this is the design range, and it depends on the size of the car, the size of the battery, the aerodynamic design, and so on and so forth. However, we also now look at what we call achievable range. The achievable range depends not only on the technical characteristics of the car, on the design range, but it also depends on idiosyncratic factors. Idiosyncratic factors like driver habits or driving conditions. Okay, and now these idiosyncratic factors, the impact of these factors on the battery performance or on the actual realized range of the electric vehicle cannot be fully understood or estimated before the customer buys the car, because those are idiosyncratic. These are idiosyncratic factors. So let's go back to the AAA survey, and let's see if there is anything else that the administrators of the survey found. What they found was that after purchase, and again, this survey targeted people who actually bought an electric vehicle. So what they found was after the purchase, 77% of those who were originally concerned about range sufficiency issues, they were no longer concerned about it. This is quite interesting now. This is an interesting observation. Why? It points to the fact that if you are able to provide customer, the consumer, and as close to a post-purchase experience as possible at the time when they're evaluating whether should I buy an EV or not, that can help you alleviate their concerns, and that can facilitate conversion of purchase interest to actual purchase of an electric car. And interestingly now, this observation brings to the forefront the role that car dealers can play to facilitate providing this post-purchase experience at the moment of consideration. And if you think about it, car dealers, they represent the only point of contact between customers and the manufacturer. That's the main point of contact between customers and the manufacturer. So,
was this immediately after the purchase, or how long after the purchase?
the survey, you mean how long after they? Yeah, I don't have. I can look it up in the report. But so you're saying how many leaves it was, weeks or months, right? How long it took them to figure it out?
Yeah, I mean, I can just see a difference if if you're asked immediately afterwards.
Yeah.
You might, well, if you bought the car, you wouldn't want to admit that.
Fair enough.
And then if it was a year later, then you might have had experience. Well, I haven't, run out of range, so I'm good now.
Fair enough. So it's more credible information if it's later, longer after. You're absolutely right.
I'm not sure which way is more credible or not, but yeah, it could impact the reason for why.
That's a good point. We could possibly look it up. We will find in a survey. That's a good point. Thanks, Tom. So now the question is, okay, the dealers are very well positioned. They are the only point of contact between customers and the manufacturer. So they are very well positioned. They are on the only way that you can facilitate the providing this post-purchase experience at the point of consideration. So now the question is, are the dealers doing anything to facilitate providing this experience? So the answer is a lukewarm yes, very lukewarm yes. Why lukewarm? So we know that there are programs out there like BMW's i3 extended test drive program, where participating dealers allow customers who are interested in buying an electric vehicle to use the electric vehicle for up to 3 days. Now, this is not a typical test drive. A typical test drive, most of you have experienced that, lasts up to 15 or 30 minutes. In this case, you have participating dealers allow customers to use it up for 3 days. The idea here is they want to let customers figure out the extent to which the electric vehicle can meet their mobility needs. Okay, and this is what we call, in this case, this is an example of a demonstration service where dealers demonstrate the product to the customers. Other examples that we have found in practice, the dealers allow customers to use more sophisticated software in their dealerships. They help them through the use of technology and software to figure out, to estimate what we call achievable rates by providing information, which can be fairly technical, because I know you may not be able to see the screenshot here, but there are many technical requirements that you have to provide in this software in order to produce a fairly accurate prediction of the achievable rates. So another demonstration service that we have seen dealers offer in practice is this, helping customers figure out understand estimated achievable rates through the use of specialized software. Now, I said earlier, so those are examples of dealers offering demonstration services so they can facilitate customer learning. But I said that's the answer to the question, are dealers doing anything? It was a lukewarm yes. Lukewarm because those practices are not widespread in practice, okay? As a matter of fact, we have seen in forums people complain that, oh yes, we know that the BMW has this amazing program, but we cannot find any dealers offering that program. As a matter of fact, we have also found evidence where customers who are really interested to buy an electric car, they cannot find a dealer in their area that sells electric vehicles. Even the dealers who sell electric vehicles, we know that they have like a lackluster attitude towards promoting the electric vehicle. So when a customer walks in the dealership, we have seen evidence where the dealer actually doesn't really try to educate the customer and help him or her decide whether an electric vehicle is good for them. So there is definitely a void. Okay, we know that the dealers can play a critical role. Some take advantage of their unique position, but many, some will say most of the dealers, they're not taking advantage of this unique position. And this is one of the reasons why we have seen many community-based initiatives or non-profit organizations jump in and say that we know that demonstration, we know that figuring out, helping customers figure out whether an electric vehicle is good for them to meet their mobility needs is critical to electric vehicle adoption. So what they're doing is they're connecting customers with participating dealers. So there is an appreciation of the need to provide such services. And we have seen third-party non-profit organizations and community-based initiatives pop up and emerge, trying to connect the two sides. So this is a starting point of this paper. So what we're saying is that the role that dealers can play to facilitate the adoption of electric vehicles is not well understood and it's not well exploited. And as a matter of fact, we're going to develop a model, an analytical model, which Hank is going to walk you through in a couple of minutes. And the research questions that we're asking are, first of all, we're going to look and we're going to investigate when should a dealer offer EV electric vehicle demonstration services. And when I say demonstration services, you can think of them as extended test drives. How do such services affect electric vehicle adoption of electric vehicles? What is the environmental impact of doing so? And we're going to take a life cycle kind of approach here. Environmental impact will be, we are going to look at total impact comprising production, usage, and disposal. And of course, how do the answers to the above questions depend on market and technology characteristics? In terms of positioning ourselves with respect to the rest of the literature, I'm going to skip, in the interest of time, I'm going to skim through this, but we're positioning in the context of the sustainable operations literature, 3 streams: green business models, durable goods distribution through dealerships, and the effect of demonstration services as a consumer learning mechanism.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to continue by talking about the model and other results. So basically, we consider a dealer who is selling 2 types of cars: the traditional gasoline vehicle, the conventional gasoline vehicle, and an electric vehicle. So the dealer can offer one of them or both of them. And the dealer chooses the prices for both types of cars, which we denote by the PG for the electric, for the gasoline vehicle, and PE for the electric vehicle. And each of the car has a procurement cost. That's the cost that the dealer buys the car from the dealer, which is CG and C. And we consider customers who have different mobility needs. So basically, that's the miles they're going to travel throughout the useful life of the car. And we assume that the customer's mobility needs theta is following uniform distribution from 0 to 1. And the customers has 3 options. So first one, buy the conventional gasoline vehicle, or buy nothing, buy no cars, and use public transportation to fulfill the mobility needs, or buy the electric vehicle. And if you buy the conventional vehicle, you're going to derive per mile utility V. That's the gross benefit you get by driving a car for per mile. And that's the same whether you use gasoline vehicle or electric vehicle. But they're going to be different in terms of the operating cost. And the operating costs include the cost of the fuels, like the gas or the electricity. It also includes the cost of maintenance. And we know that for gasoline vehicles, the operating cost is higher. So the kg is the operating cost for the electric vehicle, and we assume it's higher for electric. We assume it's higher for gasoline because the gas is more expensive than electricity, and the electric cars, they have fewer moving parts, so they're going to require less maintenance. And that's kind of the advantage of the electric vehicle. And the disadvantage of the electric vehicle is the range. So although for the gasoline vehicle, we assume if you buy it, it can cover your mobility needs theta in full for any customer. If you buy the electric vehicle, you can only cover a fraction of your mobility needs, which we cannot buy the fraction by the tilde I. And for the rest of the mobility needs, we assume the customer is going to use public transportation. And by resorting public transportation, we assume the net utility, which is benefit minus cost, we normalize that to 0. Okay. And for each customer, they make the decisions to maximize their net utility. Okay. And the range is uncertain, and it depends on customers' driving habits, driving conditions, as Jan has mentioned. So we considered 2 types of customers for whom the range, the achievable range is uncertain. And in the market, there are lambda fraction of high-type customers, and there are the rest, they are low-type customers, and they are high or low-type in the same set. For each type of customer, the achievable range, this tilde R, can take a high value, which we denote by little r. That's the design range. So assume it's equal to the design range, or it can be discounted. It can be lower because the use pattern does not fit the electric vehicle technology. So for example, if let's say I'm driving in extreme conditions very often, or have many hard brakes, okay, so then the achievable range is going to be lower than the design range for me. And we consider the discounted range as a fraction of your design range, and with no fraction by all. And we assume, like all the customers, they don't know before when they make the purchase decision, they don't know whether they're going to achieve regular design range or discounted range. But the high-type customers, their belief of getting design range is higher. So average is the belief for the high-type customers of getting the design range, the higher range. And so we assume average larger than upper L is her belief for the low-type customer that the design range is high. And that is without demonstration. So the customer, they are uncertain about the achievable range. And what happens with demonstration is that first, to offer demonstration, the dealer has to incur cost. You have to offer you need to have some cars in your dealer lot, prepare it for customers who have test drives. So there's a cost. And we assume that the customers who is going to achieve high range will receive a favorable impression, and those who achieve low range receive unfavorable impression. Basically, by having a demonstration, customers knows the range, whether it's high or low. So basically, if you have a demonstration, the customers, they kind of know the range. Okay, and that means among the high-type customers, let me try to draw it here. So among the high-type customers, we have alpha H of them who are going to experience high range. And among the low-type customers, we have alpha L of them who is going to achieve high range, and they will get favorable impression. They know they're going to achieve high range. So the number of customers who have favorable impression will be this one. So lambda, the number, the fraction of type of customers multiplied by alpha H, those who are going to achieve high range, and same for the total customers. Okay. So that's for the consumer decision and the impact of demonstration on the consumer, And this is the utility. So basically, consumer, they compare the net utilities among different mobility options and to choose the mobility option that maximize their net utility. And by buying a gasoline vehicle, your utility is V minus kg, your net benefit per mile driven, multiplied by theta, your mobility needs minus the price kg. If you buy an electric vehicle and when the dealer does not offer demonstration, then this is V minus kg, that's your net per mile utility, which is higher. This is higher than your net utility for gas vehicle because of lower operating cost. KE is lower, but it's not going to, you're not sure it's going to, it's not going to cover your full mobility needs. So you have alpha I probability for high type customer, alpha H, alpha L probability, you believe it's high range. So the range is going to be little r. And with 1 minus alpha I probability is going to be low range. So the range you achieve is called multiplier r. And then that's the fraction of the mobility is covered by electric vehicle. And for the remaining miles, you're going to use the public transportation, which has 0 electric utility. So this is your utility, this is your price. And with demonstration, you know whether you're going to achieve high range or not. If you achieve high range, you're going to have range R. If you achieve low range, get unfavorable impression, you're going to achieve range tau multiplied by R. So that's the customer utilities. And basically, the customers, they choose among these options to maximize their net utilities, and based on that, we derive the demand functions, the demand for the electric and gasoline vehicles, which we denote by the D and DG. For the cases of offer demonstration, denoted by the superscript D, and not offering demonstration, but the superscript respectively. And the firm choose the prices with and without demonstration that give you your optimal profit with and without demonstration, which is ID star and pedal star, and then compare the two profits on the optimal prices to decide whether to offer demonstration or not. So that is the model description. Any question from the audience, either here or virtually, before I go to describing our results?
Okay, in that function, what kind of function did you use?
What kind of function do I use?
Yeah.
Which utility function?
Yes, P sub
How are the D's derived?
How the D's derived? That's basically based on the mobility needs. So because the mobility needs theta is uniformly distributed from 0 to 1. So depending on whether you offer or not offer demonstration, customers along this line, if they have high mobility needs, they may buy EV or gasoline vehicle. If they have low mobility needs, they don't buy any kind. So the demand is basically 1, the largest mobility needs, minus the lowest one, the threshold point, above which they buy, below which they don't buy. That's the
Essentially, you equate the utilities and you identify the marginal customer who below that level, that person's going to buy a conventional, above that level, that person's going to buy an electric. It's by comparing the individual utilities.
Thank you. Any other question? I want to use the clicker just to point. So although not connected to the laptop, it has a laser. Yeah, the laser system. Okay, because it's really hard. I'm not as tall as Yannis to Into everything.
It's still happening me too.
Okay, any other question before we go to the fancy results? Okay, so let's talk about the results. So basically, we analyze optimal consumer decision, optimal prices, and optimal demonstration. Okay? And I'm going to start by describing 3 very interesting effects of demonstration on customers' purchase decision in equilibrium. And the first effect, we call it the market creation effect. So basically, the idea is, this is what happens when the dealer does not offer demonstration. So the customers, if they have high mobility needs, they buy the gasoline vehicle. Low mobility needs, they use public transportation. And now with demonstration, those who receive favorable impression, they're going to think that the EV is for them. Okay, it's a good fit. So the effective quality of electric vehicle for these customers increases greatly, because they used to be uncertain. They used to think that, okay, it may not be for me. I may not cover a good portion of my mobility needs. Now they know it's going to cover a lot. It's going to cover the EV experience. It's going to deliver the design direction. So they're going to like it more. The quality, effective quality for your vehicle is higher. So the customers who have high mobility needs, they're going to buy electric vehicle because of the high range, and also remember it has low operating cost than the gasoline vehicle. And in this way, we basically create a market of electric vehicles among the customers with high mobility needs. Show those customers receive a favorable impression from demonstration. And as you can see, this is a good area. We make it green. We make it green because it's going to increase your EV adoption, and presumably it's going to decrease your emissions, right? Because the EV they are green, and you're replacing EVs, you're replacing gasoline vehicles by electric vehicles. But because we have this case happening, so this is still market creation effect, but it happens when the EVs is so attractive, when the EVs has very low procurement cost, or the range is very high. In the sense that when you have the demonstration, the customers who receive a favorable impression, they used to buy gasoline vehicles, all of them now buy EV. In addition to that, some customers who used to resort to public transportation because of low mobility needs, now they also buy the electric vehicle. The EV market expands, and it is created from 0 to this point. And when this happens, of course, the electric vehicle adoption increases from 0 to this value, but the environmental implication is not very clear, because you are replacing gasoline vehicle by electric vehicles for those customers, which may reduce their emissions. And for those customers who used to use public transportation, which is even greener, the electric vehicles, now they buy the electric vehicle. So the total environmental impact because of this can be unclear, and we will see that later. Okay, so that's the first effect, market creation effect. The second,
What's the value of 1? Is that the max? What is that?
that's the
Maximum
yes,
mobility?
that's the maximum mobility needs, because we consider theta to follow uniform distribution from 0 to 1. So 1 is the maximum. Yeah. And we have done some collaboration. So in reality, the average theta is around 25.8 or 9 miles per day. So if we still consider, we still consider uniform distribution, the theta would be double that amount. But here, for the model, we normalize that to 1. Okay, thank you for the question. And this is the second effect. So this is called market expansion effect. The idea is that in this case, for the high-tech customers, the electric vehicle is already attractive even without demonstration. It happens when the electric vehicle's procurement cost is low, so the dealer is going to price it lower, and or the range is high enough. In those cases, even without demonstration, despite customers uncertain about the range, those with high mobility needs still going to buy electric vehicles. Why? Because of the lower operating cost. So the benefit from lower operating cost already offset the uncertainty of the achievable range for those customers, and they are high mobility customer because it benefits the most from lower operating cost per mile. Now, with demonstration, what happens is that your EV market expanded from those customers into those moderate mobility needs customers. They used to buy gasoline vehicles. Now, some of them, they're going to switch to that, which is greener because it's like electric vehicles are greener than gasoline. So that's the second market expansion effect. And both seem positive, right? In both cases, market creation or expansion, we increase the electric vehicle adoption. But we have a third effect. Before that, this is another case of market expansion. So when the electric vehicle is very attractive, lower units, lower procurement cost, or higher range, then the market of electric vehicles due to demonstration can be expanded from this to that. And like the market creation effect, this part, basically the customers, they switch from using public transportation to buying a car, electric car. That can increase the emissions because they used to use the greener transportation method, which is public transportation. So last one, it's called the market contraction effect. So this is actually a negative effect on the EV adoption. And the idea is that think about the customers who get unfavorable impression. They used to be uncertain about the EV range. There's still a chance for them. Like they still believe the EV can give them high range for some chance. Now, after demonstration, they realize EV is not for them. So they're not going to buy. And that means those who used to buy there's no battery. Those who used to buy, let me do this. Let me use my output. I don't think I'm playing enough.
No, on the touch screen. On the touch screen.
Okay. So for those customers, they used to buy the electric vehicle because of the low operating cost. Now they switch to gasoline vehicle because they know the range is low, it's not for them. And in this way, we have smaller EV adoption. We also can have greater total emissions because they switch to the more like dirty transportation method. Okay, next, based on these three effects, we analyze the implication for the demonstration on the total profit, on the EV adoption, and also the environmental impact. And we start with the dealer profits because this is kind of a program that the dealers, they voluntarily participate. You cannot force the dealers to do this kind of things. So to make it like good for the environment, it must be in the first place profitable for the dealer to participate. So we want to first look at the dealer's profit impact from demonstration. And we found that. So basically we illustrate the result with this graph using collaborated data. And on the x-axis, it's the fraction of the what we call optimistic customers. They are the high-tech customers. The y-axis is the EV procurement cost. So we have three regions. When the procurement cost is very high, you don't offer EV, you don't sell any EV, you don't offer demonstration. It's a not very attractive option. When the procurement cost is a bit lower, this is very interesting. So the green region is where you offer demonstration. The dealer offers the electric vehicles, but does not find it profitable to offer demonstration. And that is because of the market contraction, because it's going to dissuade some customers from buying electric vehicles. And the blue region is when it's optimal to offer electric vehicle and the dealer also wants to offer demonstration. That's because of the market creation and expansion effect through which some customers buys the electric instead of the gasoline. And that's more profitable for the dealer because those customers believe that electric vehicle has a higher quality due to the lower operating cost. So the dealer can price the electric vehicle higher after demonstration. Okay, and this, if you look at this region, you're going to see that when the procurement cost of the electric vehicle is relatively high, in this case, demonstration is optimal for the dealer. When you have favorable market characteristic, optimistic market, meet with low procurement cost, meet with low procurement cost. But when the operating cost of when the procurement cost is lower, it's exactly the opposite. Your demonstration is optimal if the market is not optimistic. Okay, it is here, and the EV procurement cost is actually high. So this can happen in opposite directions, and the reason for that is as follows. So in this case, when the procurement cost of the vehicles is relatively high, then you won't sell many EVs without demonstration because it's not very attractive. Okay, the cost is high. So with demonstration, it's going to create your EV market through the market creation effect, which is prominent. And when the market is more optimistic or the electric vehicle procurement cost is lower, it's going to strengthen the market creation effect. So demonstration is more attractive. But when the procurement cost is already low, in this case, even without offering demonstration, you can sell to many customers, EV customers. And in this case, you are more incentivized to offer demonstration when the market and the technology conditions are not good, are bad. Why? Because when they are bad, by offering demonstration, you don't lose many EV customers due to market contraction. That's more dominant here, because the market creation is not dominating, because in this case, you can sell to many EV customers even without demonstration. So to avoid your profit loss from that market contraction, we offer demonstration only when the market and product characteristics are bad, are not very good. Okay, so that's for the profit implication. And we next look at the EV adoption, the number of EVs sold. We find that if the dealer is not offering EV without demonstration, then with demonstration, it's going to increase EV adoption through the market creation effect. Because in the first case, that happens when the procurement cost of EV is very high. By offering demonstration, some customers are going to think the EV has much higher quality, so you can sell EV to them. That's increasing your EV adoption. But if the dealer is already offering electric vehicles, even without demonstration, that happens when the procurement cost of the electric vehicle is low. In this case, by offering demonstration, sometimes it can reduce the electric vehicle adoption. And that happens when the market or the technology condition is pessimistic. Okay, it's not optimistic. And the reason is it is due to the market contraction effect. Through market contraction, when your technology is more developed or market is more optimistic, you have many EV buyers even without demonstration. Now with demonstration, there is market contraction. Customers who get unfavorable impression, they switch from EV to gasoline vehicles, and there will be many such customers switching if the technology of EV is good or customers are optimistic. So in those cases, the dealer profits actually goes down. And very interesting, in those cases, although dealer profit goes down, although EV adoption goes down, the dealer may still find it profitable to offer demonstration. So it's not that by offering demonstrations, EV adoption always goes up. It can be profitable for dealers to offer demonstration, even when it reduces the EV adoption. And that happens because in those cases, although my demand of EV goes down, I'm using demonstration purely as a market I mean, purely as a price discrimination tool. Those who get favorable impression, they like EV more. So I'm going to price higher. Although my demand goes down, my total profit can go up. Okay. So that's the EV adoption. And next, we look at the emissions. So as Yanni said, we consider a life cycle perspective. We consider emissions from the whole life cycle during the useful life of a car. So we have emissions during production, and then usage, and then disposal. And for electric vehicles, it has lower per mile usage emissions, but it has higher emissions from production and disposal due to the use of battery. And now I'm presenting results for the usage emissions. We have also analyzed the other type of emissions, and if you add them all up in total, they are structurally the same as the usage emissions. So this is what I'm going to focus on. And what we found is that first, each demonstration leads to lower EV adoption. In this case, it must lead to greater usage impact. This is kind of intuitive, right? Because when demonstration reduces EV adoption through the market contraction effect, some customers switching from EV to gasoline vehicles, and it's not going to increase your emissions because the gasoline vehicles is dirtier to use. So that's kind of intuitive. What's more interesting is the second point. So even when demonstration leads to higher EV adoption, in this case, we still find that the usage impact can be higher. The usage impact can be higher. And there are two reasons. The first one is that when the EV adoption increases, it can be through converting gas customer to EV, or it can also be expanding the market of electric vehicles into customers who would use public transportation, which is even greener. So by persuading those customers to buy EVs, you actually increase your emissions during usage. And second, we have another probably more interesting reason. So the second reason is that there is an asymmetric impact on the usage emissions from market expansion and market contraction. So in market expansion, you are converting those middle mobility needs customers from gasoline to electric vehicles. And for market contraction effect, you are converting those high mobility needs customers from electric to gasoline vehicles. So even if you are converting the same number of customers through the two effects, the second is going to dominate the first in terms of the emissions. Why? Because for the same number of customers converted, they're going to use EV more. They're going to, because they have high mobility needs. That's the reason they buy electric vehicles even without demonstration. Now you persuade them to buy gasoline vehicles, that's going to greatly increase the usage emissions. But for the market expansion effect, those customers, they used to, without demonstration, they buy the gasoline vehicles because of kind of moderate mobility needs, not too high, not too low. After demonstration, they buy electric vehicles, which reduces emissions, but not so much because their mobility needs are actually lower than those who are converted in the opposite way through market contraction. Okay, and we have this graph basically summarize the results on the EV adoption, the DE, and the emissions from usage. So basically, what we found is that only when the market and the technology conditions are unfavorable, meaning that high procurement cost and less optimistic customers. Only in this condition, we're going to see demonstration increasing EV adoption and also decreasing emissions. If you have the opposite condition, if the technology is developed and customers are optimistic, then we have exactly the opposite. So the EV adoption goes down and emissions go up due to demonstration, although it's profitable for the dealer. Okay, so to summarize our paper, we find that demonstration induces three effects: market creation, expansion, and contraction. And when the attributed technology is more developed, demonstration can lead to decrease in EV adoption. That's because of market contraction effect. And demonstration can lead to greater user impact even when it increases EV adoption. And we have two reasons there, as I just explained. And demonstration can benefit the dealer to the detriment of EV adoption and the environmental impact. That is the red region. It's profitable for dealer, but reduce EV adoption and increase the emissions. Okay, so with that, that concludes our talk. And thank you for your attention, and happy to answer your questions.
Is there any questions here?
So how does the frequency of, or the availability of charging stations kind of come into this? So it seems like it's based all on range. Right?
Yeah.
Mobility. So does that come into play? Would that change this analysis?
So basically, the charging stations is going to, we include that consideration in the model as the, let me go there. Yeah, to the discount. So the charging station is considered implicitly actually as the top. So basically, when you have more developed charging network, then the customer, they can charge like halfway in their trips, or has a higher chance to do that. And with that, the customers who are going to have lower range, they're going to cover a bigger fraction of their trips. So that's basically can be simplified as the per meter top increases. Yeah, so that's considered.
Okay, so it's kind of a joint effect.
Yeah.
Yeah, tau subsumes probably many effects or exogenous to the model, but right.
Yeah. Any other questions? Maybe from the.
I have one question. So you have this assumption for this mobility need following a uniform distribution. So how general is this assumption?
General is this assumption?
Yeah, if I change to other type of distribution or other assumption, will it have a great impact on the insights and results?
The idea here, so first it's we adopt the assumption for profitability. So basically it comes into the analysis in the sense that when you derive the demand function, you need to calculate the number of customers for EV or for gasoline vehicles, and to do that with uniform distribution, it's just the largest minus the lowest. When you have other types of distribution, we haven't considered that. But if you ask me now, so if it's close to uniform distribution, it should be similar results. Yeah, I see no reason why it's fundamentally different. But of course, when you have another different distribution, let's say you have not this uniform, you have a bump. So very few customers have valuation, very few low valuation, many in the middle, then it can, it may play a big role, because then when you set prices, when you, let's say, lower the price, you're attracting suddenly a bump like a big mass of customers. In that case, we don't know. Yeah, that can be very different.
Yeah, the only problem may arise if you continue, if you consider distributions like normal, that's exponent to infinity, right? That can complicate the result. But if you discretize it, let's say, if you consider like instead of a continuous uniform, if you consider, let's say, a discrete kind of distribution with three buckets, let's say, of mobility needs, yes, the analysis will be messier, but the main effects will still appear.
Yeah, that's right. The main factor. Any other questions?
Right, we can open the floor for anyone virtual, if there's any question.
Let's see.
You can just unmute yourself or type it in the chat box. All right, I think there's no more questions.
I have a
Oh, sorry, yes.
So do you have any plans on other shoots or anything that's interesting, you did this interesting study?
Yeah.
What?
Yes, there is a plan to communicate that and outreach. We just need to, I mean, that's part of us getting feedback and putting the final touches on it. And then after that, second step will be outreach to communicate it. Because it's quite interesting. If you ask me, the main message here is that, I mean, demonstration is not like, one of the main messages, it's not that like a tool that only the benevolent dealer would use, the one that cares about the environment. I mean, the message here is that this is a profit maximizing price discrimination tool that any dealers may not, I'm not sure how many realize it, but they can use it to their benefit. Unfortunately, in some cases, at the expense of broader reasons like the environmental impact and so on and so forth. But yes, we have a plan for outreach after that.
Would you have any access to trip length data?
I mean, we have used the National Household Transportation Survey to calibrate because, I mean, the figures that Han presented, they are with calibrated data. So we do have access to publicly available data and we have calibrated the parameters. Up to that point, we have done it. Yeah. There are some, but I have to be honest with you, right? I mean, there are some parameters that are impossible to calibrate. So you have to go like high, low, or high, medium, low. In this case, like the prior beliefs, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the alpha is those are you have to go high, low there.
Thank you. I think that concludes our talk. Thank you very much. And thank you everyone online participating in this seminar. Everyone have a good weekend. Thank you again for giving us a wonderful talk.
And you have to tell us on Monday how many of us faculty actually pre-ordered electric vehicles after that.
You need to do a survey. You need to do a survey. Thank you.
Thank you.